We are living in a volatile political environment. You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorable.
Come on, man.
If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Come on, man. And if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It was a debate.
And we are live. So when I hear the words master class, I automatically think of master race. But from what I've learned, master class is a place on the internet where the intellectually minded can teach degenerates like us. For a fee, of course. You know, it's like Too Short said, you don't fuck for free. But here's the dilemma. When you hear the name George W. Bush Jr., not senior, do you think of teacher, master, or intellectual? Now, whatever your answer is, you can learn about what it takes to be a leader and a team player for a measly amount of your time and $15 a month, which is paid annually, of course, at $180 a year. Deals. But here's a clip of what Masterclass can provide you for your hard-earned money.
The chief executive has got to be bold within reason and daring in application. I recognize very few people watching this will become president, but I think you'll find lessons in leadership that will apply to your life. When I was speaking to audiences, I didn't want them to think I was smarter than they were. One of the keys to communication is to figure out how to enable the person you're talking to relax. You know, I was a master at the malaprop. Underestimate. The press corps reaction was, did the guy really just say that?
Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't notice that I wasn't down there in the corner, but it's okay. You still got the gist of what he's saying, right? So he said, when I was speaking to audiences, I didn't want them to think I was smarter than them. I was the master of the malaprop. So he was just dumbing down his genius when he said this then.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Fucking classic. It's a classic, man. You know, that right there is worth $180. So welcome everyone to another episode of the Deplorable Talk Show. You are here with Mr. Deplorable himself, Israel Perez. Now, you might be wondering, what is this disastrous thing I stumbled upon on YouTube or Rumble? Well, you've stumbled upon a place where I give my unfiltered opinion on politics and culture. This is not a show for kids, nor is it a show for the intellectually minded. I know nothing about the things I choose to talk about, but this is America, where opinions are just like assholes. Everyone has one. I just choose to record mine and spread it on the internet. So, we will start off today's show talking about an intellectual atheist known as Sam Harris and his troubling opinion about Hunter's laptop, which will be in our first segment of the day called Trending. We will then jump into today's big lead, which will be about a car bombing that took place in Russia that killed a well-renowned political figure's daughter. It's not good. Trust me. Also, I have a new stinger for, the big lead. So I'm really excited about that because we need one. Such our main segment. Why didn't I have a stinger for it? It just makes no sense, right? And we will then close the show out with a segment called Seattle Looks Like Shit, where we will talk about gang violence and shootings in the Emerald City. But before we jump into our first segment of the day, if you have not heard, Biden has issued a student loan forgiveness plan. In my opinion, it's not so much a forgiveness, but a way to buy votes for the upcoming election. It is him saying, hey, here's some money, man. Now, don't forget who takes care of you. When it comes to voting time, you remember who took care of you when you needed it. And that's just the thing, is we don't need it. If anything, what I think needs to happen is we get rid of that predatory loan system for schooling. That is geared towards young minds who desperately want to leave the house and live on their own. Schools will become more affordable again if we were to do that. You won't need a $50,000 loan to go to school. And people already in debt don't get their loans forgiven, but there is no more interest occurring, and the interest already paid gets added to your principal amounts. That's what I think. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you agree with what Biden is doing or not. Let me know your solutions. And also let me know if you think I'm a dumbass that doesn't know what I'm talking about. I'd love to hear it. You guys do it anyways. So let's get into our first segment of the day, called Trending.
Trump was too liberal. Tweet.
So, this is a segment where we will be looking at what was trending on Twitter. And Sam Harris was trending on August 18th at number 2 in the top trend list. So let's give that a look. As you can see, he was trending next to hashtag She-Hulk and beating out hashtag Thursday vibes. So the reason I say it like that is because normies don't know who the fuck Sam Harris is. The only reason I know about Sam Harris is because of Joe Rogan's podcast. So for Sam Harris to be competing and beating corporate advertising and popular hashtags is pretty fucking impressive. So the reason Sam was trending was because of his remarks he made on Trump and Hunter Biden's laptop on a podcast called Triggernometry. They were very outrageous, to say the least. So when asked his opinion on Trump's Twitter ban, he starts to ramble on, comparing his podcast to Twitter, making head-scratching comparisons between Trump and Alex Jones, and making false allegations about how Trump would attack private citizens and unleash the hordes of MAGA upon them. So let's give that clip a watch, huh?
Look at Twitter. I see a company that has terms of service, which people like Alex Jones and Trump clearly violated. I mean, whether they in fact violated this terms of service as written, I think they violated any coherent terms of service that Twitter should have had, right? Like you shouldn't knowingly be able to turn your mob on a private citizen and ruin their lives through doxing, right? Which is what Jones and Trump were doing. It just again and again and again to people. Every time, I mean, Jones was doing it with the Sandy Hook parents, right? You literally have.
But Sam, you're conflating two very different people. I mean, Alex Jones does not belong in this conversation. I'm not interested in Alex Jones right now.
But I would dispute that. I think Trump is essentially, we got Alex Jones as president of the United States.
No.
I don't think they're very different people. I think that it's the same phenomenon in my world. Because just the level of misinformation, disinformation, lying, the charlatanism, the conscious fraudulence of everything at scale, and the targeting of individuals with known consequences, right? Like Trump, every time Trump singles out a specific citizen and says, "Look at this jackass who's trying to whatever the claim would be," that is a human sacrifice. We know that person's life is just never the same again.
Yeah, whatever, Sam. Whatever, dude. So, for one, Jones didn't use Twitter to dox the parents of Sandy Hook. No, he made a documentary about crisis actors, and that incident at Sandy Hook was the main subject of that documentary. That happened in 2012. Jones got banned from Twitter in 2018 because he was talking about civil war, and Twitter said he was inciting violence. Also, Trump never attacked private citizens on Twitter. No, and as misleading as this headline sounds from Politico writes, the 23 people, places, and things Donald Trump attacked on Twitter as president. So let's scroll down here, because I'm not going to read this whole article, but we're just going to hit some points here. So the very first one, political establishment in Washington, D.C. All right. 2, women's marches. 3, Chicago. 4, Chelsea Manning. 5, Mexico. 6, New York Times. 7, The Washington Post. 8, the media. American borders and vetting immigrants and refugees. John McCain. Lindsey Graham, Delta Computers, immigration and refugees from other countries included in the ban. Chuck Schumer, the Democratic Party, Nancy Pelosi, Iran, President Obama, UC Berkeley, Arnold Schwarzenegger, protesters, the judge who blocked his travel ban. So, everything mentioned there was either a public figure, a public event, a state, or an organization, or a nation. No, those don't count as private citizens. You're full of shit, Sam Harris. So, but what freaked people out on Twitter was not that, but it was this. So let's give this a watch, huh?
Just finally, I do, again, it's like a coin toss for me, the Hunter Biden laptop thing, because I do understand how corrosive it is for an institution like the New York Times to show obvious bias and inconsistency and dishonesty in how it's like they couldn't even frame it honestly. It's not like, it's like the way I would frame it is, listen, I don't care what's in Hunter Biden's. I mean, Hunter Biden, at that point, Hunter Biden literally could have had the corpses of children in his basement. I would not have cared.
What?
Right? It's like, there's nothing. First of all, it's Hunter Biden, right? It's not Joe Biden. But even if whatever scope of Joe Biden's corruption is, like if we could just go down that rabbit hole endlessly and understand that he's getting kickbacks from Hunter Biden's deals in Ukraine or wherever else, right? Or China. It is infinitesimal compared to the corruption we know Trump is involved in. It's like a firefly to the sun, right? I mean, like there's just, it doesn't even stack up against Trump University. Right? Trump University as
Trump
a story
University
is worse.
That's the one you're bringing up to compare to Hunter Biden's laptop?
Hunter Biden's laptop.
What?
Now that doesn't answer the people who say it's still completely unfair to not have looked at the laptop in a timely way and to have shut down the New York Post's Twitter account. Like that's just a conspiracy. That's a left-wing conspiracy to deny the presidency to Donald Trump. Absolutely, it was. Absolutely, right? But I think it was warranted. Right, and again, it's a coin toss as to whether or not
Sam, I'm sorry.
That particular piece.
I'm really sorry. I was the one that said we should move on, but you've just said something I really struggle with there, which is
the kids in the basement.
Fuck the kids in the basement. I'm interested in democracy. You're saying you are content with a left-wing conspiracy to prevent somebody being democratically re-elected as president.
Well, no, I'm content. Well, but the thing is, it's just not left wing, right? So Liz Cheney is not left wing, right? Liz Cheney is doing everything in her power
to prevent somebody being democratically elected.
But there's not a conspiracy. It's not. It was a conspiracy out in the open. But it doesn't matter if it was. It doesn't matter what part's conspiracy, what part's out in the open. I mean, I think it's like if people get together and talk about what should we do about this phenomenon. If it's like if there was an asteroid hurtling toward Earth. And we got in a room together with all of our friends and had a conversation about what we could do to deflect its course, right? Is that a conspiracy? Like some of that conversation would be in public, some of it would be in private. We have a massive problem. We have an existential threat, right? Politically speaking, I consider Trump an existential threat to our democracy.
Of course you do.
Right now, he's not going to destroy the world.
He's the boogeyman.
Destroyed democracy.
He's everybody's boogeyman, or at least on the left, right?
But that doesn't destroy.
Doesn't make no fucking sense, man.
What I'm not suggesting. At no point was I suggesting we should stuff ballots or actually break the machinery of democracy. But political opinion is already being just completely inundated with misinformation, biased takes, half-truths, and outright lies, right? Like, or just the amplification of bad or misleading information based on the algorithm, right? So it's already just an abattoir of opinion, right? And now the question is, what can you do with your own biases and your own to get the outcome you think is actually better, not just for yourself personally, but for the world, right? So okay. What
would you do to get the outcome that just doesn't benefit you, but the world. What kind of fucking logic is that? Rig an election by suppressing information you know will turn the election in favor of your political opponent? Undermine democracy to save democracy? Jesus. No, Sam Harris is supposed to be this groundbreaking atheist intellectual, but from what I saw in this interview, he's a cultist with Trump derangement syndrome. He compared Trump University to Hunter's laptop. You know what? Compares the wrong word. He said Trump University was worse than Hunter's laptop. His hate for Trump is so strong that he's willing to look past human trafficking, backdoor deals with foreign regimes, incest, and pedophilia. Come on, man, that's chump change. Everyone has skeletons in their closet. None of that compares to Trump University. The fuck out of here. Jesus, dude. And for those who don't know, Trump University was Trump's real estate school. It was not a licensed university. Students chose to enroll there. Once they realized it was a bad idea and they spent money on schooling for something you didn't need a degree in, they sued Trump University and every student got 90% of their money back. How the fuck do you say that's worse than Hunter's laptop? You know, and I'm not the only one here that thinks his remarks are fucking outrageous. So, Paul A. says, New York Times bestselling author Sam Harris just said he supported censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story because doing so helped Joe Biden. Harris thinks cheating is fine if Democrats do it. How do you reason with people like this? Very true. There is no reasoning. Ben said, the Sam Harris clip today was such a flashpoint, brutally honest and untethered to any type of political normalcy, beyond the pale and completely disqualifying. It was such an honest inside look at the pervading intellectual class that their inability to see themselves as the enemy. Yeah. Geoff Schollenberger said, Sam Harris's case is revealing. He and the new atheist spent a decade arguing once you cured people of the mind virus of religion, they would become rational science believers. Then the Great Awakening swept across secular liberalism, providing definitively they were idiots. So, Harmit put it the best. Sam Harris who? So, let's end this segment out, huh? Sam Harris, seeing the fallout of his uncomfortable truth, put out a response tweet to the backlash. And let's give this a read. The podcast clip circulating that seems to be confusing many people about my views on Trump, which is understandably because I wasn't speaking very clearly. So, for what it's worth, here's what I was trying to say. I was essentially arguing for principle of self-defense, where there is a continuum of proportionate force that is appropriate and necessary to use. I've always viewed Trump as a very dangerous person to elect as president of a fake university. Okay? Let alone the U.S., and when he became a sitting president who would not commit to a peaceful transfer of power, I viewed him as more dangerous still. However, I've never been under an illusion that he is Orange Hitler. On the podcast, I was speaking narrowly about the wisdom and property of ignoring the Hunter Biden laptop story until after the election. I've always thought that this was a very hard call, ethically and journalistically. But given what happened with the Anthony Weiner laptop in the previous election, I think it was probably the right call. Nothing I said on the podcast was meant to suggest that the Democrats would have been right to commit election fraud or take other illegal measures to deny Trump the presidency, nor do I think they did that. Oh. Yes, Sam, everyone understood what you said. In 6 tweets, he basically just restated what he said in the podcast that took him 15 minutes to say. Trump is bad. Keep him out of office by any means necessary, even if that means taking illegal measures. There you go. I said what Sam said in a sentence, and that ends the segment.
Trump was too liberal. Tweet.
Tap on the shoulder. You adjust the microphone as you talk, man.
for their gracious aid.
So, quick update before we jump into the big lead, and it's a very big update, by the way. The Elon Twitter battle continues. And for those who forgot or don't know, Elon Musk made a bid to acquire Twitter and take it private after the Babylon Bees account was suspended. That was back in April of this year. So Musk moved to terminate his acquisition of Twitter in July due to the number of bots on the platform and Twitter's failure to be truthful about their business and lying about bot accounts. This prompted Twitter to sue Elon Musk and vice versa. But now we learn that Elon was correct about about Twitter lying, and his decisions to terminate his acquisition was justified. So, The Verge writes, Twitter's former security chief says company lied about bots and safety. Oh. Twitter has hidden negligent security practices, misled federal regulators about its safety, and failed to properly estimate the number of bots on its platforms. Scroll down here so that way you can see what I'm reading. According to testimony for the company's former head of security, the legendary hacker turned cybersecurity expert Peter Mudge Zatko, the explosive allegations could have huge consequences, including federal fines and the potential unraveling of Tesla CEO Elon Musk's bid to buy Twitter. In an interview with CNN, Zatko said he joined Twitter in 2020 at the bequest of the CEO, Jack Dorsey, right after the company was hit by a massive hack in which accounts belonging to figures like Barack Obama, Bill Gates, and Kanye West were compromised. So here's the interview with CNN that they were talking about in this article.
Ready?
Yes.
Why are you coming forward?
All my life, I've been about finding places where I can go and make a difference.
This is Peter Zatko. Until January of this year, he was head of security at Twitter, but now he's a whistleblower. And he says Twitter's security problems are so grave, they are a risk to national security and democracy.
I think Twitter is a critical resource to the entire world. I think it's an extremely important platform.
He's handed over information about the company to US law enforcement agencies, including the SEC, FTC, and the Department of Justice.
May I ask your name in the middle?
I'm Mudge. Zatko is better known in the hacking world by his nickname Mudge. He's been a renowned cybersecurity expert for decades.
His roots are in hacking, figuring out how computers and software work.
That expertise might be why Jack Dorsey, then CEO of Twitter, hired Zatko after the company was hit by a massive attack in 2020 when hackers took over the accounts of some of the world's most famous people.
Mudge was one of the top 5 or 6 executives at the company.
Zatko is represented by John Tai, who founded Whistleblower Aid, the same group that represented Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen.
We are in touch with the law enforcement agencies. They're taking this seriously.
Twitter is pushing back, saying Zatko is peddling a narrative about our privacy and data security practices that is riddled with inconsistencies and inaccuracies and lacks important context. When we spoke to Zatko and his lawyer, they said that the lawful whistleblower disclosure process only allows them to talk about these issues in general terms. For specific allegations about Twitter, they referred us to Zatko's disclosure.
I'm not going to go into details, but I will say that Mudge stands by the disclosure and the allegations in there.
The disclosure. CNN and the Washington Post obtained a copy of the disclosure from a senior Democratic official on Capitol Hill. In it, Zatko claims nearly half of Twitter's employees have access to some of the platform's main critical controls.
There's an analogy of an airplane. So you get on an airplane and every passenger and the attendant crew all have access to the cockpit, to the controls. You know, that's entirely unnecessary. It might be easy, but it's too easy to accidentally or intentionally turn an engine off.
Twitter accounts belonging to a whole lot of famous people.
That kind of access contributed to the massive attack in the summer of 2020 when hackers, 2 of them teenagers, tricked a couple of Twitter employees into letting them into Twitter's systems. That gave them access to accounts, including that of then presidential candidate Joe Biden.
I don't have to tell you the significance of being able to breach the Twitter accounts with many millions of followers, including of leading politicians 3 months from a presidential election.
In the disclosure, you quote from a Wired magazine article that says, "But if a teenager with access to an administration panel can bring the company to its knees, just imagine what Vladimir Putin can do."
Foreign intelligence agencies have the resources to identify vulnerabilities that could have systemic effects across an entire platform, across the whole internet.
Twitter told CNN that since the 2020 hack, it had improved these access systems and had trained staff to protect themselves against hacking.
If you're running any system, the more people that have access to the main switches, that's a very risky situation.
Yes, absolutely. I'm talking in generalities, just large tech companies need to know what the risks are, and then they also need to have an appetite to go fix it.
Zacko also claims Twitter has been misleading about how many fake accounts and bots are on its platform. That's an issue that Elon Musk has made central to his attempt to get out of a deal to buy the company.
I guess right now I'm sort of debating the number of bots on Twitter.
There will be suspicions of the timing of this. Are you guys carrying water for Elon Musk?
Absolutely not. We've been following the news just like everyone else, but that has nothing to do with his decisions or with the content of what was sent in to U.S. law enforcement agencies.
Mudge hasn't been talking to Musk in the background or anything like that?
Not at all.
Zacko says he was fired by Twitter in January of this year after he tried to raise the alarm internally. He points the finger at Twitter CEO Parag Agrawal, saying he has worked to hide Twitter's security vulnerabilities from the board.
I suspect that Twitter might try to paint it like this, that Mudge got fired and he's trying to retaliate against the company.
Absolutely not. This is not any kind of personal issue for him. He was eventually fired in January of this year, but he hasn't given up on trying to do that job.
In response to the allegations, Twitter told CNN security and privacy had long been a priority at Twitter. As for Zacko, they said he, quote, was fired from his senior executive role at Twitter more than 6 months ago for poor performance and leadership. He now appears to be opportunistically seeking to inflict harm on Twitter, its customers, and its shareholders.
Of course.
Your whole perception of the world is made from what you are seeing, reading, and consuming online. And if you don't have an understanding of what's real, what's not, yeah, I think this is pretty scary.
Are you nervous?
Yeah. This wasn't my first choice. I just want to make the world a better place, a safer place. The levers that I have to do it are through security, information, and privacy.
So, this is what I want to know. Is if this man can single-handedly bring down Twitter by just, whistleblowing, why the fuck would you fire him? I'd still keep him on the team, Or I'd make him sign some paperwork after we fired him saying, hey, you can't talk about this shit. Otherwise, you're going to get sued into oblivion. It's weird to me, man, that they're just making so many goddamn mistakes, especially that Elon has this, is suing them and vice versa, and they're suing Elon. Why would you make these mistakes? It's insane. So, according to the Financial Times, Twitter must give Elon Musk more data on fake users, judge rules. And I can't get rid of this cookie thing down here, so just bear with it. A Delaware judge has ordered Twitter to hand over more data to Elon Musk relating to how it calculates bots and fake accounts on its platform, but stopped short of fully granting the billionaire's absurdly broad request. I don't know if it's absurd if he wants to know what he's going to be getting when acquiring the company. For information on the entire user base, ahead of the October 17th trial date, in litigation over whether Musk must go through with his $44 billion takeover of the social media company, lawyers representing the billionaire entrepreneur have sought more data and documentation detailing Twitter's calculations of how many users were legitimate and could be served advertising. So, I've heard that the users only make up 20% of accounts. That's a lot of bots if that is true. So, and this simply throws a wrench in Twitter's defense as well. So Musk might be able to terminate his contract to acquire the company, or hopefully acquire it at a much lower price, which I think is the better result for him. I want him to own Twitter. I think it's going to be better off in his hands. I think it's going to be better off as a private company for the short time as when he acquires it. But I'll keep you guys up to date on this as more information becomes available. But this brings us to the big lead for today.
Sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media. More alarmingly, some media simply aren't true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Before World War I happened, before anyone knew the Great War was about to start, they did not know that the death of Franz Ferdinand was the catalyst. The reason I say that is no one understands how society's actions result in outcomes they've never expected. Franz Ferdinand's assassination was the straw that broke the camel's back. Same thing with Bleeding Kansas for the Civil War. It was the point of no return. It was the crossing of the Rubicon. There it comes up again, huh? What happened in Russia on August 20th might be the precursor, and we just don't know it yet. Alexander Dugin is a Russian political figure. He has been described as Putin's brain. He is a political philosopher, analyst, and strategist. No, you can think of him as this regime's Rasputin. On August 20th, a car bomb exploded, killing Alexander's daughter, Darya Dugin. Reuters writes, daughter of Russian ideologue killed in suspected car bomb attack. The daughter of an ultra-nationalist Russian ideologue who advocates Russia's absorbing Ukraine was killed in a suspected car bomb attack outside of Moscow, Russian state investigators said on Sunday. Darya Dugin, daughter of prominent ideologue Alexander Dugin, was killed on Saturday evening after a suspected explosion device blew up in the Toyota Land Cruiser she was driving, investigators said. The Russian foreign minister speculated that Ukraine might have been behind the attack. Ukraine denied any involvement. Well, not good. This is no longer a skirmish of border lines. When attempted assassinations of political figures start occurring, we have entered into a new theater of war. Look at this. So here's a thread that was posted by Roman M. And here's the video of the situation that happened in Russia. So what it looks like here is that's Alexander, and where they have it blurred out, I believe that's his daughter on the floor right there. That's her car. Look at that. Jesus, dude. Man. So if we scroll up here, here's another video from another side. Look at that. Jesus, dude. And this is the car. Fuck, man. After they put the flames out. Man. There's another video from the other side. Man. That's scary. So people are saying that the bomb was intended to kill Alexander Dugin. Ukraine denies involvement. Of course they do. But when the head of the presidential administration tweets a broad threat just hours before the car bombing, it's difficult not to suspect them. So, Russians with attitude tweeted, today, the head of the presidential administration in Ukraine, Andrei Yarmak, said that, quote, our task is to make sure that not only the current generation of Russians, but their children and grandchildren will pay. 8 hours later, Alexander Dugin's daughter, Darya, was killed. Jesus. Coincidence? Maybe. I don't know. So what I do know is this is happening. China to join Russian military exercises as U.S. rivals deepen ties. We have pushed Russia into China's arms. We are creating an Axis alliance between China and Russia, and people are going to have to choose sides at some point. And Africa knows this. African leaders quick to address U.S.-China tensions over Taiwan. A spike in tensions between China and the United States over Taiwan has not gone unnoticed in Africa and has prompted a response that underscores the continent's tilt towards Beijing. The U.S. announced trade talks with Taiwan on Thursday following U.S. congressional delegations' visits earlier this week that came on the heels of a controversial trip to the self-governing island by U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Washington's recent interaction with Taipei have infuriated Beijing, leading to China's military drills in the seas around the island. Most countries in Africa have sided with China. During Pelosi's visits, officials from several African countries condemned the U.S. and publicly supported China. The government of Eritrea deployed Pelosi's visit as reckless continuation of U.S. policies marked by flaws and follies. Zimbabwe's ruling ZANU-PF party also attacked the U.S. for aggressive conduct following Pelosi's visit with spokesman Chris Mustard, I don't even know how to say his last name, I'm going to try, saying, "It is a cardinal postulate of the international diplomacy that there is a one China, and Taiwan is an integral part of the mainland China." The foreign minister of the Republic of Congo, meanwhile, expressed firm support for the one China policy. China's state media were quick to publicize such support from African governments, with an article in the China Daily headlined, "African Sea through U.S. ploy in Pelosi visit." Jesus. We are creating an Axis alliance, guys. And I'm not sure if it's on purpose because I find it difficult imagining Biden as a person playing 4D chess. Tensions are increasing. They are so high that Pink Floyd's Roger Waters is speaking out about it, and his opinion of the United States is unfavorable. So let's give that a watch.
I remember the last tour. Of course, I came and watched. Very much, about Trump. And in the current show, you've got a montage of war criminals, according to you, and a picture apparently of President Biden on the screen, and it says, "Just getting started." What's that all about?
President Joe Biden?
Yeah.
Well, he's fueling the fire in the Ukraine for a start. That is a huge crime. Why won't the United States of America encourage Zelensky, or whatever his name is, the president, to negotiate and to explain why, when he stood on the platform of ratifying the Minsk agreements, which he did when he was elected by 73% of the Ukrainian population that was left able to vote. After that, somebody either whispered in his ear or he completely changed his mind about making peace in the Donbass and about solidifying the Minsk agreements and making peace with their Russian neighbors and obviating the need for this horrendous war that's killing.
You're blaming.
We don't know how many Ukrainians.
But you're blaming the party that got invaded. Come on, you've got it reversed.
That's any war. When did it start? What you need to do is look at the history, and you can say, well, it started on this day. You could say it started in 2008. Okay, this war is basically about the action and reaction of NATO pushing right up to the Russian border, which they promised they wouldn't do when Gorbachev negotiated the withdrawal of the USSR from the whole of Eastern Europe. He said, we will do this on one condition, that you don't come one inch
that's what
closer
people don't
to
understand,
the Russian
man,
border than the
is
eastern
we promised NATO would not expand.
And
all we did
if I may
from that
include
time is expand NATO closer and
as
closer
an
to
American,
Russia's border.
Agreed to that.
It's fucking insane.
Sure.
I understand why they're mad.
When you say this, then I have to say, what about our role as liberators? You of all people.
You have no role as liberators.
World War II? World War II?
You got into World War II because
it's
Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor. You were completely isolationist until that sad that devastating,
I would argue we
awful
were
day
always going to get in, and that
1941.
pushed us in. But thank God the United States got in, right? You
Well,
lost your father in World War II. Thank God
Well,
the
yeah,
United
thank you,
States.
God, but
right?
thank God the Russians had already won the bloody war almost by then. Don't forget, 23 million Russians died.
Yeah, not many people know that.
Protecting
They
you
were
and
already
me.
kicking the
Nazis.
fucking shit out of
and you
the
would
Nazis.
think the Russians would have
by the
learned
time
their
we
lesson
were,
from
the war was
and
almost ended.
wouldn't have invaded Ukraine.
Well, you,
Fair?
with all your reading, I would suggest to you, Michael, that you go away and read a bit more and then try and figure out what the United States would do if the Chinese were putting nuclear-armed missiles into Mexico and Canada.
Yeah?
The Chinese are too busy encircling Taiwan as we speak. Okay?
They're not encircling Taiwan. Taiwan is part of China. And that's been absolutely accepted by the whole of the international community since 1948. And if you don't know that, you're not reading enough. Go and read about it.
Okay. Did we solve anything here today?
Yeah, we did. Well, I mean, no, we didn't.
I mean,
Because you're believing your propaganda, your side's propaganda.
You're defining
but
it as
Taiwan,
propaganda.
you can't have a conversation about human rights, and you can't have a conversation about Taiwan without actually doing the reading.
Roger, if you're having a conversation about human rights, at the top of the list of offenders are the Chinese. Why is it always the Western world?
At the top of your list.
Why is it
the
always
Chinese
the Western
didn't
world?
invade Iraq and kill 1 million people in 2003. In fact, as far as I can recall, hang on a minute, who have the Chinese invaded and murdered, slaughtered? In
Their own.
Bollocks.
Okay.
That's absolute nonsense. Complete nonsense. You should go away and read, but read some proper.
Hey, my
literature.
problem is I spend too much time reading your liner notes, okay?
Is this where we're at? Is this where we're at? That we're asking for an opinion of a musician on how to solve these problems? Why is Roger Waters on CNN talking about what's happening in Ukraine and Taiwan? Fucking Jesus. So I don't agree with what Rogers was saying about Taiwan, but he has a point. We are not liberators, and we have to stop thinking of ourselves like that. Our actions are creating an alliance against us, and I don't know if it's fixable. We will see what comes of the assassination attempt on Dugin. I would like to say nothing will come of it, and it's just casualties of tension, but with how highly he is held, I don't see Russia taking this lightly. So that ends the big lead for today.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media simply aren't true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
All right, well, let's finish the show out with some local craziness. For those who are unaware, I live near the city of Seattle. Seattle's a fucking hellhole. And for those who are unfamiliar with it, it is a hellhole because it has been ruled by libtards since the 1970s. It has worked wonderfully. So this brings us to the last segment of the day. Seattle looks like shit. A well-known Seattle bar was victimized by the city's ever-increasing crime. On August 13th, while Tony T's was having another wild night of drunken shenanigans, this happened. Jesus, dude. What the? Wow. I've sat at that bar many times. That is insane, dude. And I would like to say surprising, but that has been the reoccurring norm in Seattle. My Northwest writes, gunfire erupts around bar outside of T-Mobile Park. Scroll down here. Seattle police officers respond to reports of a shooting near Occidental Avenue South and Edgar Martinez Drive, just outside of the T-Mobile Park Saturday morning. Officers arrived within minutes, finding a 14-year-old girl shot in the leg. The victim had run from shots heard around Tony T's Sports Lounge. The girl is in critical condition, according to spokesman with the Seattle Police Department. Witnesses on the scenes report that the shots were fired from within the bar. Obviously, as we saw in that clip, right? But that was not the only shooting that happened in Seattle that night. Check this out, guys. Jesus. 1 killed, 5 injured in overnight shootings in Seattle. At 11:24 p.m., police in the Harlem City neighborhood responded to the shooting on the 420th block of South Orchis Street. Officers found 2 victims with gunshot wounds in a nearby alley. At 12:18 a.m., police in Soto responded to a shooting near Occidental Avenue South and Edgar Martinez Drive South. Arriving, officers found a 14-year-old girl who had been shot in the leg, according to witnesses. Gunfire broke out around the nearby bar, and the victim was one of the many people who ran when they heard the shots. And that was obviously Tony T's, right? And then police in the Pioneer Square neighborhood were called to 3rd Avenue South and South Main Street at 3:17 a.m. for reports that a man had been shot. Officers found a man with 2 gunshot wounds and immediately began first aid. SFD medics also responded to provide treatment and eventually transport the man to HMC in critical condition. Jesus, dude. 3 shootings in one night within hours of each other. That's insane, dude. So, according to Seattle Homicide's tweet posted on August 26th, Seattle homicides for 2022 year-to-date total 41. 2022 fatal police shootings are 3. 2021 total, and this is homicides, is 43. 2021 fatal police shootings is 2. 10-year average is 28.8. Record high was 69 in 1994. So, we're getting close to passing last year's total and creeping closer to the record high in 1994. This is what happens in Democrat-run cities that defund the police and let criminals run wild because they are part of underprivileged communities. And this was Seattle Looks Like Shit. That ends the show, guys. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please hit the like button and definitely subscribe. If you do subscribe, make sure to ring that bell. I upload episodes weekly and I wouldn't want you to miss out. Audio listeners, you can subscribe too. Thank you for listening, but hey, you know you want to watch the videos we played. You can watch the Deplorable Talk Show on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. You can listen to the Deplorable Talk Show on Spotify, Apple, Google, and Stitcher. You can find links in the description below, or you can head to the deplorableent.com. That is the general hub for all things deplorable. Take care, guys. See you next episode.